Mm.
Hold on. Okay. Hi, welcome everybody. My apologies, we're doing this again, just in case. Hopefully we have now overcome any technical difficulties. My name is Daphne Price, and I want to welcome my good friend Jennifer Raskas. Jennifer is the Washington, D.C. manager at the Shalom Hartman Institute of North America. She received a BA from Columbia University and a master's from the Harvard Kennedy School of Government. Jennifer has focused her career on enriching Jewish communal learning and deepening diverse and compelling relationships between American Jews and Israel. Jen has extensive experience in formal and informal Jewish education. She teaches classes on Hebrew literary approaches to readings in Tanakh, and she also teaches on Talmud. And she's a trained educator for the Matan Institute of Torah Studies program, Women Through the Ages. Her writings have appeared in academic journals and in online learning forums in both written and video format. She lives in the Washington, D.C. area near me. I am so proud to call her a neighbor and friend. And now, Jen, I'm going to hand this off to you.
Great. Thank you so much. Hi, everyone, and good afternoon. First of all, I just want to thank JOFA for making it a priority to increase all of our experiences of Shavuot and all the Jewish holidays with Shiurim and learning. And a special thank you to Daphne Price for her visionary leadership with JOFA and all the great initiatives that she has been spearheading. So thank you both, organization and executive director, and also thank you all for coming in and watching and taking out some time in all of our very busy schedules to do a little Torah learning in advance of Shavuot. So since Shavuot is the one of the things that we celebrate is Matan Torah, that we receive the Torah. What we're going to do today is we're going to look at the whole story that happened between when Bnei Israel received the first set of Luchots, the first of those tablets, and then actually when they received the second set of tablets, and there actually were a lot of differences that happened between the first one and the second one, and we're going to see if there are lessons that we can learn both for this holiday, for ourselves, and most importantly for the relationships that we have in the differences that we will see between the two of them. And we're going to use Dr. Carol Dweck from Stanford University, her research that focuses on mindset. Specifically, she focuses on fixed mindset and growth mindset. So first, I just want to explain some of this fixed and growth mindset with a very important source. It is not on the source sheet, which, by the way, the source sheet is in the chat function, and also it will be made available on the Facebook post, I believe, a link to the source sheet. This is not on the source sheet for a very important reason. The best place to find this one is on wherever you see your friends' replay episodes. So I want to start by talking about a specific episode in Friends, which I think really shows a lot of what we're going to be talking about. And it's season 5, episode 5. It's called The One with the Kips. And it's when Chandler and Monica have their first fight. And what happens after that first fight is that Chandler comes to Monica and says, well, it was a nice relationship. I'm glad it happened. I guess it had to end sometime. I wish you all the best. And Monica looks at Chandler and is like, what are you talking about? We had a fight, but fights don't mean that the relationship's over. Fights are opportunities for growth. They're opportunities for assessing what went wrong, talking about it, hearing each other, and moving on and growing. And it's Chandler smiles because he had no idea that that's actually what happens, which Monica realizes explains a lot. And basically, Monica says to him, Chandler, welcome to an adult relationship. And I think this episode is really this exchange between Chandler and Monica really shows the difference between what I believe Carol Dweck was trying to show us when she talks about relationships in the fixed mindset versus the growth mindset. So first, taking a step back. So Carol Dweck, who's at Stanford University. So what does she mean by fixed versus growth mindset? So I'm sure many of you have read Mindset the book or have done a little research on it. And there's throughout the book she gives lots of examples of it. But the basic idea that she puts forth is that there are two basic mindsets that we can have as people. We can have a fixed mindset, which tells us that our talents and the way that we are is fixed. It's innate. It is who we are. And if we're failing at something, then there's no room for growth. It's just what it is. Usually people with a fixed mindset actually like to think of themselves as more talented than others. They see themselves in some ways as superior to others. And they don't like focusing on effort. Effort to them is something that, people who don't have the talent need to do. But a big downside of having a fixed mindset is when failure happens, which inevitably happens in life, to someone with a fixed mindset, that's an extremely troubling time. Because if they take it, if they take the fixed mindset, if they take the failure personally, then that means that they have to admit that that they might not be as talented as they thought they were. And their other alternative is to try to blame other people or the circumstance, or to try to figure out a way that this isn't actually their fault, and they become very defensive. I do see that someone asked, where is the source sheet that the speaker referred to? It's at the very top of this chat if you're in Zoom. And if not, I believe in Facebook, it's going to be in the comments.
It's coming in the comments.
It's coming in the comments. It will be there, but don't worry, we're not even there yet. So you're ahead of the game. Okay, so that's fixed mindset. And it turns out that especially, you can take this into all different environments. You can take this into classroom learning. You can take this into business. You can take this into sports. You can take this into performing arts. In all areas of life, those who have a fixed mindset don't get as far as those with what we're going to explain as a growth mindset, because failure.
Sorry, Jen, I need to interrupt. I'm really sorry. Yeah. For the link to the Google Doc, if you can just take a second and just give people permission to view.
Okay.
Let's see if that works.
Okay, hold on.
Let's see if that works.
Okay, it says it's loading. Okay, let's see if that works.
All right, someone's gonna have to test it out and comment in the comment box.
Okay, let me go back to Zoom. All right, okay. Growth mindset is very different. Growth mindset is that you believe that you have the ability to grow, which actually corresponds a lot more with actual research that goes on in the brain. We all know now about the brain that we are constantly building new connections. We are constantly, expanding our own brain. And Daphne, let me know if the Google Doc is working.
I don't know, but if you can't see it in the comments in Zoom, it was added to Facebook, so you can also find it there.
Okay, so growth mindset is basically the belief that you can grow with experiences. And what this does is it encourages students and people to learn and to constantly be growing. And B, if you have failure, which again happens to everybody in life, you take failure to mean an opportunity for growth. So that doesn't mean that you're not upset about it or that you don't need a little ice cream or retail therapy afterwards. But what it does mean is that you can pick yourself up and you can realize that that failure is a part of life, and that from this experience, we can all grow. And that there are lots of studies about how much better it is to have a growth mindset. So how does this relate to the second Luchot? Well, first we have to describe how it relates to relationships. And in Carol Dweck's book, Mindset, she has a chapter on relationships. And she actually points out that within the relationship, there are three things that have mindsets. There's person A in the relationship who has either a fixed or a growth mindset. There's person B in the relationship. And then there's the relationship itself. And that some relationships are formed as fixed mindset relationships and some are formed as growth mindset relationships. Fixed mindset relationships would be the way that Chandler was looking at the relationship. It's that we have this relationship. If a failure in his mind, which was a fight, happens, that means the relationship's over. A growth relationship would be what Monica saw, where she, a fight happens, a bump in the road, and she sees it as, first of all, totally normal, and what's actually supposed to happen in relationships, and as an opportunity for growth. And what we're going to show, now that we're going to turn to the actual sources, what we're going to show is that the relationship between God and the Jewish people in the first Luchot were actually set up in a way that is very similar to a fixed mindset relationship. And what happened in the second Luchot is that it all changed to become one of growth. And this has ramifications for the rest of chumash, which we will talk about. So first of all, I just want to thank Rav Menachem Liebtag, because a lot of the textual sources that we will look at in the beginning are based on a shiur that he gives called the 13 Midot, 13 attributes of mercy. And for those of you who want to see that inside, you can go to tanakh.org and look in his archives at the Yamim Noraim, the high holidays, and you'll see it right there. And we're gonna again look at some of these sources, but think of it from the perspective of growth and fixed mindset, and then how we can grow in our own relationships, both with however you choose, if it's God, if it's the people around you, up to you. So let's take a look. So hopefully everyone has a source sheet in front of them. If not, I will do my best to read the text out loud so that everyone can follow, even if you don't have it right in front of you. So first of all, it's important to realize that when God gave the Luchot, or gave the Torah to the Jewish people, that he was in fact enacting a covenant. A covenant is something that you have, it's a framework for a relationship where, one party does X, the other party does Y. And there were two other times that God initiated covenants. The first one was with the whole world after the flood with Noah, when with the rainbow, when God promised never to wipe out, everyone with a flood again. Second one was what we call Brit Avot, the covenant with the fathers, with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, which was focused on a people and a land, which basically said that God was making a covenant with the Jewish people that he was going to bring them to the land of Israel, where they would become a nation. So those are the first two covenants. And then at Sinai, we get a third. And the third covenant, which we can, we see in Devarim, it says, Hashem Elokeinu karet imanu brit b'chorev. The Lord Hashem made a covenant with us at Chorev. And if you actually go back to Shemot, to Exodus, when Hashem is describing what the covenant that he's going to be making with the Jewish people at Sinai, he talks about how he's going to make everyone a mamlechet kohanim v'goy kadosh. Everyone is going to be a nation of priests and very holy. So this covenant is bringing holiness into the relationship between God and the Jewish people. They're not just going to get a land and become a people, but they're actually going to be imbued with holiness. And the covenant is really about the mitzvot. It's about the commandments that God is giving to the Jewish people, and through the commandments that we would become holy, holy unto him, holy people. So once we understand that what happened at Sinai is a covenant, we also understand that covenants are if then, right? If you keep the commandments and if you keep the Torah, then you will become kadosh. You will become a holy nation. You will become, you will become the people that get to keep the mitzvot with God. So what happens? Let's see just how strict this covenant is. If we look at the second source, which is Shmot, Perek Kaf, Psukim Bet to Zayin, so Exodus chapter 20, verses 2 to 7. So these are the 10 commandments. And if we look through them, we see that, we know, let's go to the bolded part. The unbolded part are some of the actual words of the 10 commandments. God is the one that brought you out of Egypt. You shall have no other gods other than him. Etc. And then let's look at the Hebrew verse, and then I'll translate it. How does God describe himself when he's giving this first set of Luchot? He says, El Kaneh, I am a jealous God. Hoked avon avot al banim, al shlishim v'al revi'im l'sonai. What else does he do? He takes the guilt that parents should have had because they're the ones that sin. So if you're a parent and you sin, he keeps that guilt on the third and the fourth generations. But he does show kindness. Who does he show it to? He does show kindness, but he shows kindness only to, even for the 1,000th generation, for those who love him, who love God, and who keep his commandments. Now, it's great that there's kindness in here. 2 thumbs up for kindness. But if we think about who is he showing kindness to, it's only those who love him and keep his commandments. If you sin, God specifically says he's going to take it out on the 3rd to the 4th generation. And he describes himself as a very jealous God. Now, if you think about what type of relationship is he describing here with the Jewish people, it's a very, very, very strict, if you do what I say, if you keep the commandments, things will be good. If you do not keep the commandments, not only will things be bad for you, but things will be bad for your kids and your kids' kids and your kids' 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 kids. It's very much a fixed mindset relationship, whereas, if things go well, things go well. But if things don't go well, then that's it. For generations to come, there's going to be ramifications. And very, very crucially here, do we see any room for tshuva, for being able to show that you're sorry and have remorse and try again? No. Everything that's written here is a very, very, very strict sort of formula for how you can be in a relationship with God. And if you mess up, this is the Chandler relationship. If you mess up, if you have that one fight, according to Chandler and according to the first set of Luchot, that seems to be it. And if you look even more carefully, when in the 3rd commandment in verse 7, when it says, Lo tisat shem Hashem elokecha l'shav, that you should not take God's name in vain. Why? Ki lo yinakeh Hashem et asher yisa et shmo l'shav. And if we translate that into English, Hashem will not clear the one who swears falsely by his name. It doesn't say, but don't worry, we'll give you chances to make it up. Don't worry, there's always, second strike, a third strike, second try, second chances. None of that. It says, you take God's name in vain, God won't forgive you. Verse 7.
Sorry.
And if we keep going, we see that after God says the 10 commandments, he then talks about how there will be a malach, there will be an angel that will take the Jewish people into Israel. And God specifically says, if we look at the bolded part in the next source, so it's Exodus 23 in verse 21, it says, Hishamer mepanav, God is saying, listen to this angel. Why? Ushma b'kolo, al tamarbo, do not defy him. Ki lo yisa lefi shachem, because he is not going to pardon your offenses. Ki shmi b'kirbo, because my name, God's name, is with him. And then it keeps going. Ki im shamo tishmu b'kolo vasita kol asher deber. If you obey him and do everything that he says to do, then God will be the enemy to your enemies. The angel will be the enemy to the enemies. Again, this is a very Chandler type of relationship. It's if everything's going well, that's great. But as soon as things don't go well, that's it. It's a fixed mindset relationship. And if we if we keep reading, we all know what happens. We know the middle of this movie. And what happens in the middle of the movie is Cheda Egel, is the sin of the golden calf. So Moshe's up there. He's learning all this great stuff. He's getting all this, all this Torah to bring down to the Jewish people. And what does God say to him? In Exodus 32, verse 7, Shmot Lamed Bet, Pasuk Zayin, Vaydaber Hashem Moshe, Lech Raid, go down, because the people that you, God blames Moshe, that you brought out of Mitzrayim, they are not acting correctly. And he tells them what they did. They built a calf out of their own gold, and they're worshiping it basically. Although there's many different interpretations of, was it to replace God? Was it to replace Moshe? But basically, it's not good what they're doing. And God says in verse 10, if you look at the Hebrew, "V'yichar api b'hem v'achlam," my anger is going to blaze forth against them, and I'm going to destroy them. Now, why does this make sense? According to what we just read, God very specifically said, here's how this works. You do good things, things go well. You do bad things, no more relationship, at least for 3 or 4 generations. So it makes sense that when Bnei Israel, before they even get the Luchot, before they even get to see everything and read the fine print, that they make this big mistake with the golden calf. And God basically says, okay, well, it was nice while it lasted, the Chandler move. I guess it had to end sometime. And that's it, time to destroy them. So we know that God actually then says to Moshe, I'm going to destroy all of them, but I'll make a new nation out of you. And again, this makes sense. There's no opportunity within the relationship for tshuva. There's no opportunity, not only for remorse and for getting things back to where they were, but there's no opportunity where Monica was for growth, for learning from mistakes and being able to grow forward. Now, once we realize what just happened here, that Moshe literally now has these luchot, he has these tablets, and on them, inherent in them is this covenant that says, if you do well, things are good. If you sin, no more covenant. Now we can think about what Moshe did in a very different light. We always read, that Moshe broke the tablets because he was angry at the people or for lots of other reasons. And this was Rav Liebtag's, one of, I think, the best parts of this whole thing is Moshe goes down and he sees that the covenant that is behind these first luchot no longer applies. He's literally holding a document that would not stand up in court anymore because the Jewish people have taken down their side, and therefore God doesn't have to keep his side. So what does he do? The same way that if you were standing in court and you were holding a contract and it was so clear that the contract is no longer valid, what may be one thing that you do? You rip up the contract and you try to make a new one. And that's exactly what Moshe does. But instead of ripping the contract, he throws down the luchot and destroys them, and they shatter at the foot of the mountain. And one interpretation of why he may have thrown down the luchot as soon as he saw what happened is because the contract that the luchot contained was now invalid. There was no more covenant of Sinai, of the Jewish people becoming that holy nation, because again, within the covenant, there was no room for failure. There was no room for mistakes. And the next verse, basically, it says inside what we already said outside, which is that God says to Moshe, he says, listen, that didn't work. I'll just destroy them and I'll start a new nation. The nation will be from you. Now, at this point, I think it's very helpful to back up a little bit and realize where this story of Matan Torah, of the giving of the Luchot, of the giving of the Torah, how it fits into some of the bigger picture in terms of what God had planned for his relationship with humankind and then eventually with Bnei Israel, the people of Israel. Sound good? Is everyone ready to take a jump backwards?
Bring it.
All right. Okay. So this again, we're going to do some Rav Liebtag analysis. So if you think about the very, very, very beginning of chumash, originally there seems to have been a plan A. And what plan A was is that God would have a relationship with all people and that we would bring God's name into the world. So Adam and Chava, Adam and Eve are the mother and father of all people. And unfortunately, plan A of having them live in Gan Eden, in the Garden of Eden, doesn't work out. So they try again, still with all the people. We get to Noah. Unfortunately, the people have sinned. So then God destroys all the people. Now take 3 of what we're still calling plan A, which is that all the people are going to bring God's name into the world. And we have the Tower of Babel. Everybody speaks the same language. You would think that's all great. It would create unity and it would create so many great ways that people would come together and build up, God's name in the world. And what do? They build up a name, but it ain't God's. They build up their own. That says, Vayasa lanu shem. We'll make ourselves a name. They build this tower. They try to become God themselves. And after 3 strikes of trying to make everybody in the world be the ones that will bring God's name to the world, 3 strikes, and it's no more plan A. What God says, and obviously, we believe that God actually knows all, so he knew all along this was going to happen, but he demonstrates for us in Tanakh. What he shows is that it didn't work to make it that every single person had the same obligation to bring God's name into the world. That would have been plan A. It didn't work in Gan Eden. It didn't work with Noah. It didn't work with the Tower of Babel. It's time for plan B. And what plan B is, brings us to Abraham. What plan B is that we're going to pick one people. And it's going to be their mission to bring God's name into the world. And it's going to actually help everyone. Very crucially, it's not that people are going to be, great for eternity and they're going to, get the gold medal and leave everyone else in the dust. Very specifically, when God talks to Abraham, he says, everybody all over the world is going to be blessed through you. So you need to bring God's name to this world. You need to be the people who are showing everyone what it's like to have a relationship with God. And through you, the whole world will be blessed. And that's plan B. And the rest of Tanakh, basically, until this point, is who are those people? How are those sons chosen? How do we go from a family to a nation? From Breshit, which was more of a Genesis, which was a family, to Exodus, which is more of a nation. And then we find out that, this nation, as their slaves, they need to come out of Egypt. And we get them out of Egypt. They come to Har Sinai. And that's the moment that we're in right now. So we had plan A. Plan A didn't work. Plan A was everyone bringing God's name to this world. And we had plan B. And plan B was that it'll be a special nation. But what was the covenant at Sinai with a special nation? It was a fixed mindset covenant. The idea is that this people will be my people, but only if they listen to what God says. And if they don't listen to what God says, then it makes a lot of sense that what was God actually saying to Moshe when he said to him, I'll destroy them and I'll start a new nation, and that new nation will come from you. What was it that he was specifically saying? He was saying to Moshe, it is time for plan C. Plan A didn't work. Plan B didn't work. Let's move on to plan C. And Moshe does something remarkable at this point. Moshe takes on the role of Monica, or maybe Monica took on the role of Moshe. But Moshe says to God, he says, actually, it's not time to start a plan C. Plan B was a good one. Let's stick with plan B with this people. What needs to change is not the people. It's not that we need a new set of people that are going to bring your name into this world and that are going to bring God into this world and show everyone how it's done. We don't need a new people. We need a new mindset. We need a new covenant, because people sin, people make mistakes. And the best way to have this type of relationship where we bring you God into this world is to understand that we need a relationship of growth. That doesn't mean that we get away with everything. We still should get punished. We still should have ramifications for when things go wrong, but it does mean that we build into our relationship with God this opportunity for growth, this opportunity for tshuva, this opportunity for getting better. So now let's look at what happens with the second Luchot. So if you look at the second Luchot, the second set of tablets that Moshe gets, Moshe does something very, 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 very creative and very smart with God. He says to God, after he convinces God that, let's keep this people, let's not just start with me, let's keep plan B. He says to God, I know that part of you, part of your kvodecha, part of your glory, includes all of this mercy, includes all of this ability to show kindness and to show grace and compassion for those of us here on earth. And he asks God to please show him that side of him. So now let's look, if you look at part 2 on the source sheet where it says the second Luchot, if we look at Exodus, Lamed Gimel 33, 17 to 19, God says to Moshe, okay, I'm going to do what you asked me to do. You wanted to see my kvodecha, you wanted to see my, it says here presence, but kavod is really respect and my honor. He said, Vayomer ani avir kol tovi al panecha, I will pass before you all of my goodness. V'karata b'shem Hashem lefanecha, and you will proclaim my name, which again, proclaiming God's name was a key part of the plan and bringing God's presence into this world. I will show you my goodness. You will proclaim my name. And v'chanoti et asher achon, I will grant grace to those that I grant grace to. V'richamti et asher rachem, and I will show compassion to those that I show compassion to. So what God is saying is, I agree. I will, in this entire transaction, in this entire new relationship that I'm going to be building with you, with the Jewish people, with Bnei Israel, I will now introduce grace and compassion. Now we can read, which is amazing with all that knowledge, how we'll be able to see this in a new light. If we look at Exodus, Lamed Daled 34, verses 4 to 10, it says, "Vayifsol shnei luchot avanim karishonim." God says to Moshe, okay, go make the tablets the way that they were before. And how is this going to be? So as you are making the tablets, let's go to the middle of verse 6, or we'll start with the beginning of verse 6. Vayavor Hashem al panav, God will pass before, and vayikra, and let's look at all of the different attributes that now are going to be present with God passing through, that Moshe will proclaim. Hashem kel rachum v'chanun, God who is compassionate and grace and full of grace. Erech apayim v'rab chesed v'emet, he is slow to anger. Does that remind us of anyone before? He is slow to anger. He is abounding in kindness and faithfulness. Notzar chesed la'alafim, he gives kindness to thousands again. But remember before, who were the thousands that he gave kindness to? Only the ones that were doing exactly what he said. Here it says, Notzar chesed la'alafim, noseh avon v'pesha v'chata v'nakeh. He just gives his kindness to the 1,000th generation. No, but only if, this is a growth mindset, I give kindness to the generations, and I forgive iniquity, I forgive transgression, and I forgive sin. Here we see, as Moshe is developing that second Luchot, Hashem is putting into the relationship all of his attributes of mercy and compassion and kindness, which basically will allow the Jewish people to now be able to mess up, to be able to make mistakes, but God is going to introduce these attributes into the relationship, which means that there will not have to be a plan C the second the Bnei Israel mess up. Instead, it will become a relationship of growth. And we see just a few psukim, a few verses in that same paragraph. If you look at verse 10, Vayomer, and God says, Hinei anochi koret brit. Now, this is going to be a covenant, which tells us right away that these attributes are not just attributes that he's just saying, but these attributes are specifically going to become part of the covenant between God and the Jewish people from now on. And if you look further down on the source sheet, there's a great chart that's come straight from our lead tag of showing exactly what words were used in the first set of Luchot and what words were used in the second set of Luchot, and showing how it changed, how it went from a fixed relationship where we were doomed the second that Chet Egel happened to a relationship of growth where we have the ability to stay in relationship with God even when things go wrong. So if we look very specifically, it says the first one was Kel Kaneh, I'm a jealous God. The second one was Rachum V'Chanun. The second, let's take another example. Lo Yisrael Lefi Shechem, number 5. I won't forgive your iniquities, as opposed to No Se'avon Lefi Shechem. I will forgive your iniquities. Number 6 is Charon Af, that God got upset, as opposed to second Luchot where it's Erech Apayim. You can look at the rest of them. So basically what happens now is that we don't need plan C, that now we're in a relationship with God where we are able to make mistakes and to be able to learn from them. And I think if we take a look now at the rest of chumash, let's take a look at a few examples, we can see how this actually comes into play. First of all, that's a good question. So I saw someone ask, but wait a second, it still says something about the third and fourth generations. So Rav Liebtag and others answer that because of context, even though it uses the same words, it probably means that he doesn't hold it against the third and fourth generations. That the words poked, which can have many different meanings in chumash, it's one of those words that can mean remember or can mean forget, that it actually comes to say that he will not hold it against the third and fourth generations. So now let's think about the rest of chumash. So first of all, right after this, or as part of Har Sinai, we're going to get the whole instructions about the Mishkan. And there's a big debate between Rashi and Ramban about whether or not we were always going to get a Mishkan, or was it something we needed because of the sin of the golden calf. So the idea that we were always going to get it makes sense in the sense of a growth relationship with God where, we give sacrifices, we become closer to him. And that is definitely part of the language when it describes the Mishkan. And it makes sense for some of the korbanot that we give at the Mishkan about there's opportunities to bring your own, there's opportunities to bring a korban just because you want a closer relationship. But there's also part of the Mishkan that specifically seems to be, in some ways, a direct result of Chet HaEgel. That it seems to be that we needed the Mishkan, we needed something in order to be able to do tshuva and to try to repair our relationship with God once it happened. That could be, for example, why in the dedication to the Mishkan, why specifically an egel is brought, and why a chatat is brought. Why are we bringing a karban chatat, the karban of sinning, to the dedication of the Mishkan if it's not connected to any sin? And it involves an egel. So, that's one of the reasons why some of our commentators have said is that the Mishkan actually was a way for us not only to voluntarily try to grow our relationship with God, but it was also a way for us to be able to repair our relationship with God after we sinned. So that's one example. And I think the even more interesting examples are if we look at Sefer Bamidbar. If we look at the book of Numbers, in the book of Numbers, there are a lot of times, as we know, when Bnei Israel complain or when they do something wrong. And what I think is one of the most beautiful things about what happens in Bamidbar is that at the times when you would think that the people of Israel have just done the biggest sins, and really, if you were God or Moshe, you would not put it past them to be like, we're done. You guys are just intolerable. I give you everything. I gave you miracles. I gave you so much. And, where's plan C? You literally would probably not put it past them if they went to the bookshelf and started looking up how to do plan C. What happens instead is that definitely Bnei Israel, the Israelites, they get their punishment, they get ramifications, but we see time and time again how God and Moshe are both committed to never leaving plan B, to always having the long-term relationship, a relationship of growth available for the Jewish people. So what's one example? one of the biggest examples is in the episode of the Meraglim, of the spies. The Bnei Israel listen to the spies who say that, oh, it's going to be terrible there in Israel, and we're like grasshoppers compared to the giants, and they complain and they say, oh, why did you take us out of Egypt? We want to go back to Egypt, etc., etc. They do get punished. There's a plague. The Meraglim who said these things, who said the bad things, do die. Again, it's not that we don't get ramifications. The most incredible thing happens right after the episode of the Meraglim. Literally, the next words when we're done with the episode of the Meraglim is God says to Moshe to tell Bnei Israel, Ki tavo el haaretz. When you come to Israel, here's what I want you to do. In a fixed relationship, Bnei Israel would get their punishment, and then God would move on to looking for plan C. But what happens? We do the worst thing possible when someone is giving you a present, is that you look at it and you say, ugh, and you ask for it to be, sent back. We literally, make a big mistake, and God takes care of that mistake. We get our ramifications and immediately starts talking about, okay, long-term, let's focus on growth. When you get to Israel, because you will get to Israel, because I am in this with you for the long run. When you get to Israel, here is what should happen. Second example of when this happens is right after Korach, is right after the whole episode where Korach challenges Moses' leadership. And literally, Korach and all of his people are swallowed up by the ground. At that point where what is on the minds of the Jewish people is death and destruction, they literally just saw the ground open up, and they even turned to Moshe and say, the ground's going to eat us too. We're doomed. Literally, when death is on their mind, and it seems like that should be the trajectory of what's going to happen, the very first mitzvah that God gives to the Jewish people after this, he says to them, "Hu alecha hara aduma." Take for yourself that red heifer. Why? Because I am going to give you the tools that when you are in a state of tuma, when you are in a state of impurity, whether it's by death or by any other means, I'm going to give you that tool to be able to become tahor, to be able to become pure. Why? Because again, this is a long-term relationship. And though there are going to be instances where we're tameh, where there's going to be, there's going to be those times, I want you to know the ways to become tahor. In a metaphorical sense, there are going to be times when we make mistakes, and I want you to know how to recover and how to be focused back on life again. So these, I think, are two great examples that show us in Bamidbar how the whole relationship between us and God changes, how the idea of Bnei Israel making mistakes is built in to this process. And even when, we make mistakes over and over and over again, that with the second Luchot, with the idea that God has introduced into the relationship his attributes of mercy and compassion and grace, that there are now opportunities for us that when we sin, when we make mistakes, that there are opportunities for us to figure out how to move forward in the relationship and how to turn it into opportunities for learning, and how to turn it into opportunities that we need to put more effort into in order to get to the better part of the relationship. So I'm happy to take any questions for all of us as we think about entering into Shavuot. I think that one of the main lessons here is to feel good about the fact that both Moshe and God believed in us and believe in us and build relationships that have that opportunity for growth, and that we can try to emulate that in our own relationships and think about times in our lives where every single person has aspects of themselves that are fixed and aspects of themselves that are growth. We all have them. And just to think about the times in our own relationships when we want to throw in the towel, when we want to say, that's it, and think about, are there ways that we can sort of rethink about these things, and think about ways that failures happen, but how can we look at them not as the be all and end all of the relationship, but as a way to grow as people and to grow in our relationships. And the last thing to think about is, in a school system, it's very important to get students to have that mindset of growth. Students will do better when they realize that mistakes that they make are learning opportunities. And there's lots of ways that you can encourage that by, first of all, praising them on the effort that they are doing, as opposed to saying, praising them on innate abilities. But it's very, very important for students to have that growth mindset. But one of the main ways that happens is when the teacher has the growth mindset, because the teacher is the one that needs to really believe that her or his students really can grow, and really can learn from mistakes and can reach the potential that is ever expanding. And I think Moshe and Hashem not only acted as if in a relationship with Bnei Israel, but really acted as teachers with growth mindsets. And really were able to model how if they can believe in the Jewish people's ability to grow, how it gives such more opportunity for the Jewish people to live through that potential. And we can also think to ourselves in what areas in our life, whether it's in our work, maybe it's the people we supervise, maybe it's our colleagues who we work with, maybe it's different people in different organizations we work with, maybe it's in our families, maybe it's in places where we go to synagogue or have hobbies, or basically anywhere that we interact with people. Are there ways that we can let those people know that we believe in their growth, we believe in their potential, and just by the way that we interact with them, maybe there's more encouragement that they can give, that we can give, that'll help them grow. And I do believe that while we give that encouragement to others, it'll help us on our own remind ourselves that we are all human, we all have flaws, we all make mistakes. And the more that we can treat ourselves with the kindness, compassion, and grace that Moshe asked of God, the more we, as our own people, will be able to grow to our own fullest potential in ways that are kind to ourselves. So thank you all so much.
Thank you, Jen. This was really, I learned a lot, and really also, in addition to a growth mindset, it now put me in a Shavuot mindset and also Rosh Chodesh Sivan mindset. So I want to thank you for your brilliant shiur, and thank you to everybody who chimed in and the questions on the side and that you answered along the way. I'm so excited to find other ways to get you to teach for us. And I want to thank you and wish you a Chag Sameach and a good and healthy reminder for all of us to share compassion with one and all.
Absolutely. Chag Sameach, everyone.
Chag Sameach, Chodesh Tov.
Chodesh Tov.